When Greg moved back to Melbourne, we had dinner at Lentil as Anything here in Sydney Road. He told me that he liked to get to know people at a party by asking, if you could do anything you wanted, be anything you wanted, what would you do? And people would engage with this and tell him that they wanted to go trekking in Nepal, or give up merchant banking and sail to Guam, or become an acrobat. And then they would turn to him and ask, what would you do? And Greg would reply, what I've always wanted to do is to be a professor of mathematics. And his face would light up with his marvellous delighted smile, and I am. My memories of Greg include him arriving at his grandfather's funeral straight from the plane, in a crumpled white suit and a Panama hat and barefoot. Perhaps I've misremembered the bare feet on this occasion. Perhaps he was wearing vegan shoes. Those would have been the vegan shoes that had to be put out at night, as their amazing breathing capacity take up all the air in the bedroom. And Greg assuring us that in Denmark, Horth is a protected name. Nobody with that name is allowed to change their name, and anyone who marries a Horth has to become a Horth as well. And possibly people are encouraged to marry the less attractive or unmarriageable Horth so as to prevent the name dying out, but I can't actually be sure of that detail. And a year ago, on a hot summer night, Greg and I looking out at the lights of Port Phillip Bay, and Greg weeping with me, sharing my own grief, and Greg sharing also just a small part of his struggles. And also a year ago, Christmas, watching Greg's simple delight in his lovely accomplished sister and her happiness with newborn Jesper. I shared a teacher with Greg, 12 years apart, and many years later she told me that he would come to her quilting elective at St Leonard's. He didn't have to come, and he didn't quilt. He was, she said, in the elective, not of the elective. And this is how I often think of Greg, in the world, but not of the world. Treading lightly, with something of the pixie about him, or perhaps translating from the elvish, or perhaps, as most of us cannot, listening to the music of the spheres. Greg was a lovely man. He was not defended. He was always only himself. We are so lucky to have had him for this little while.